What if Theokoles would have killed both Spartacus and Crixus in their fight? Let's see. The events up until then would play mostly the same. Anime is training and preparing them, the fight coming up, and they stand against Theokoles. Let's suppose that Crixus got injured to the same degree, and Spartacus stopped Theokoles from finishing off as we saw. However, Crixus was unable to even lift the helmet, let's suppose, and ate Spartacus. Therefore, Theokoles killed off Spartacus and then finished off Crixus. Thus, Borealis lost both of his best fighters, one future champion and one current champion. With Spartacus and Crixus dead, the rebellion would have been left without its two most influential leaders. This would have created a leadership vacuum among the gladiators, making it difficult to maintain unity and coordination in their fight against the Romans if there had ever been a true rebellion, as with Spartacus and Crixus. Crixus because of Naevia, and Spartacus because of Varro and his wife. Animeis would have never learned about Barca's fate, as the talk with Animeis and Naevia after Spartacus' bout with the Romans would have never taken place, thus eliminating any reason for Animeis to start a rebellion, because he never learns the truth and never learns that Barca is not free but instead got killed by Borealis from Naevia before she was taken away. Spartacus and Crixus were not only skilled fighters but also charismatic leaders, who inspired and rallied the other slaves. Their deaths would have dealt a severe blow to Borealis, who had only two other champions left, none of the level of Spartacus and Crixus except for Animeis, with Barca being second. I suppose Animeis would have been kept as Doctori and still fought in the arena as he wanted. Otherwise, Borealis would have been basically effed by Jupiter deep. Varro would likely still be alive, and if dying, it would be naturally and in the arena, as in being a gladiator. He would not have risen to champion strength, but would have been close to Barca, I suppose. But Borealis, for the meantime, would have no other choice than to let Animeis fight, because Barca would die either way because of Ovidius and all that happened. So Animeis would be his only champion to be Doctori at the same time and fight in the arena to even gain him any coin or fame. Spartacus' wife would not have died in the way she did, but likely otherwise, as she would just be another slave and mistreated, thus leading to her death by unknown causes during her life as a slave. Borealis would have no reason to kill her, as there is no further intent with no Spartacus for it to be fueled. Crixus would have never learned about Asher and Naevia, even though at this point it didn't even happen. Asher would still abuse Naevia at some point though, as there is no Crixus. But his fuel against Naevia was because of Crixus, because he saw them both, engage in love and, the rest. Spartacus and Crixus were central characters in the series, and their deaths would have eliminated the opportunity for their personal stories to unfold in any way. The arcs of these characters, as well as their relationships with other characters, would have been abruptly cut short, as with Agron, Nazir, Gannicus, etc. Gannicus would likely still be alive, as there is no reason for him to be hunted by Rome, and he is still a free man. Spartacus and Varro would not have developed a further relationship, and Aurelia would likely still be alive, as she's also not hunted by Rome at this point. She might never become a slave to begin with, as there's the chance for Varro to live and survive against more mediocre gladiators in the arena for the meantime, until he earns enough coin to be free. Though it remains a question if that will ever happen, because Borealis just lost two of his best fighters. The likes of Sigavax and such, who later became newcomers, might rise to the levels of champion, yet people like Crixus and Spartacus were once-in-a-lifetime opportunities, especially Spartacus. There's no gladiator aside Animeis or Gannicus currently to stand on the same level as Spartacus. Sigavax, the gold, is alive and rises to be champion, even surpassing Barca, let's say. Agron might be below him, as he's not used to fight long-ranged opponents. We mean Agron might be below Barca, but you never know how a fight between them would turn out. But, Barca is dead at this point, so the only true gladiators remaining are Varro, Sigavax, and Agron. Duro would still be alive, and if dying, it would be in the arena. For Borealis to gain the same fame he had as with the Bringer of Rain, he has to do something spectacular or be remembered to be defeated by Theokoles as a Lenista for the rest of his life, because of losing his two best fighters. The only thing I can think of to reach the same fame for Borealis would be to let Animeis plus another fighter fight against Theokoles, as Animeis as Doctori was able to easily beat Spartacus and Crixus in their bout. Thus, I don't see him losing to Theokoles again should he fight but with another fighter. I can see Gannicus returning to the Ludus. Since this is a what if video, we can write our own story in a way. So Theokoles is retired, not honing his skills further, whereas Animeus did and is doctori, teaching every day. If Gannicus plus Animeus would fight against Theokoles, I see them beating the shadow of death without either of them being critically injured in any degree, and Animeus plus Gannicus eventually earning back reputation for Borealis. Borealis would need to find another way to gain a patronage for the House of Borealis. However, there would be no hate between Lucretia and Ilithia as there was, as no Lycinia is happening, no Spartacus is there. Maybe Ilithia and Glaba would have never come to Capua to begin with, as there's no Spartacus to make Glaba come there. Glaba as well as villains would still be alive. There's no one who could start a rebellion in the same capacity. Gannicus would come to terms and eventually, after he returned, tell Animeus the sins he committed with Melita and their betrayal. Animeus would be angry at first, really angry, but eventually forgive his brother, as they just beat Theokoles together, a lifelong enemy of Animeus. Gannicus would be crowned god of the arena once more, and Animeus would return to his duties as doctori. Gannicus would occasionally fight for the Ludus, and still roam free doing what he wants. Animeus would become doctori, as we already said once again, and occasionally perhaps also fight for the House of Borealis. As Borealis rises in position after Theokoles' defeat, Animeus becomes a free man as planned. Naevia would still be within the household, but under Animeus now, who would basically treat his slaves like free people and not like slaves. The magistrate would maybe be alive, as Borealis would have no reason to kill him, as the only reason the magistrate got attention from Borealis was because of Spartacus. However, I have no doubt that Borealis would find another way to rise in positions in his own ways. Agron and such would remain in the Ludus as usual, but no one would ever come close to the level of Gannicus, Animeus, Crixus or Spartacus. Crixus and Spartacus would be remembered even though they lost. Gannicus briefly hears from Animeus about a fighter named Spartacus, who survived the pits of the underworld and had much potential to rise to the levels of a champion, rising the interest in Gannicus. Yet Spartacus is dead, so Gannicus gets no chance to ever see the mysterious gladiator who had the potential to rise to levels of his own, and he mourns the death of both Crixus as well as Spartacus. And so does Animeus, even though Gannicus didn't know Spartacus as much and never saw him. If Animeus is doctori now, how will he act as doctori? I mean, did you ever see a lanista who is at champion level strength and holds a position such as lanista at the same time? Animeus would aid Gannicus, whether it's for coin or position for sure, since he knows that Animeus is lanista now and is still alive and free and not hunted by Rome, since both of them are free now. Gannicus would visit the Ludus more often and drink with Animeus. However, there are also other factors, such as other lanistas and politicians who would not directly know Animeus nor accept him. Yet one action changes this. When Animeus also beat Theokoles, he redeemed his old loss basically, and is remembered to have beaten the Shadow of Death together with Gannicus. He has a really good start, honestly. He has gladiators, a Ludus given by Borealis, own support likely. However, Animeus is no man to go lengths such as Borealis in killing influential people to secure position or such, nor do I see Animeus wanting more than being a lanista and training his own men. The question is if he himself would train them or find another substitute as a doctori. He would be a lanista in the sense of Borealis' father, in a sense, with honor and, not do other means to killing people or to rise in position or rise as a lanista. He would not go lengths to that, I suppose. So to sum it up, Gannicus returns. Animeus forgives him for his sins. They become brothers again. Animeus becomes lanista. Varro and Aurelia live. Gannicus hears of Spartacus. Both Spartacus and Crixus are remembered. Borealis rises in position in other means. Gannicus and Animeus defeated Theokoles. This is basically how I would, write a scenario in which both Crixus and Spartacus would have been defeated by Theokoles. Of course, there's much more to this, but the video would be too long for that to cover, maybe in a future one or so, but I hope you enjoyed this video.